Appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Approval of previous meeting minutes. David has emailed out September of 2000, December of 2000, and then the 3 quarters this year. March 8th, June 14th, and September 14th. We'll entertain a motion.
Motion to approve.
September of 2000?
Yes.
I'm a bit behind.
Okay, all right. Just double checking.
I saw my business this last year has been a whirlwind.
Well, congratulations, and I'm very sorry.
But I'm
All right.
proud of them.
That's the
20
motion.
moving on.
David, do you second
Okay.
your?
I second my motion, yes.
All right.
Absolutely.
Your minutes.
My minutes.
All right. Any discussion changes to those minutes? All in favor say aye. All right, public input.
I would like to talk about the distribution of the T-hangers, this latest group. And I've been working with her, and she made me copies today. Long story short is I had a hanger in 2018 when the second set was finished, and my airplane wasn't ready. So, talking to Randy, what we agreed to was that the guy was on the list for this last set was going to take my hanger, and I was going to take his slot of the list. Well, now the new hangers are occupied, and I don't have it. And I'd kind of like to know what happened.
Well, this is the first I've seen it.
Well, let me tell you what I've deduced from working with her. I hope you understand what kind of gold mine you got there, because she's good. But the first issue is that probably 100 trips up here talking to Randy, and the list, he doesn't control it. He doesn't know anything. Can't find contact information for anybody on here. It's not on Pickens County website. It's not anywhere. I can tell you that Ed Wood is the CEO of a company, and the other guy, the chairman, is also the CEO of the company, but there's no contact information for him. So when Randy gave me contact information for her, I came and sat down, and what happened is that when that happened in 2018, my deposit was credited instead of putting me on the list. And given that, I'd like to know what I can do to get it remedied.
Well, we can take it under consideration and look at it. Obviously, this is the first time.
Well, you can talk to her. She
Yes.
knows
We
exactly
will.
where I stand because I've seen her 3 times now. And like I said, I hope you realize what kind of gem you got there, because that's the first person that I've been able to get any answers at all from.
Yep.
The other thing that I'd like to bring up, and it goes back to this T-hanger distribution, is it's completely invisible process. There is absolutely no accountability or a list or knowledge or anything that I, the customer, can see. And like I said, probably 100 trips from Woodstock to Jasper trying to find out, and got absolutely no answers from anybody. I understand a lot of these hangars are sublet. I'd like to know how many of those sublet hangars belong to 1, 2, or 3 individuals, particularly some that might be on this board, because I don't think that's right. I think if you go by deposit date and award the T-hangers according to the deposit date, that's what it ought to be. If you haven't got an airplane to put into it, I think you ought to get off the list, and somebody else that has an airplane should. That's my 2 cents.
And that is very much typically the procedure we follow, is if there's not an airplane to go into it, then we move to the next one that does. Now, I'll say this, is the authority that you're looking up here, every one of us are volunteers. And so we have gone from when this authority was put in place from a very country airport to one that's now close to the top 10 in the state. Getting Stacy on board as a full-time employee
Let me interrupt you for a second.
is a transition, and it's been.
What I love about this airport is the
Yep.
culture.
Oh, I do too.
And I hope to God it don't
Well,
don't change. I
that's
know we're
what
gonna build
we
new
want to.
terminal buildings and all that. I hope it doesn't turn into a Cherokee County.
But we went from no T-hangers to a bunch of them.
Well, I understand.
And so it's been a transition and we'll continue to grow and improve.
10 years
We'll
ago, I
take-
was in Jasper, and there was two guys sitting on the front porch in their rocking chairs, and I asked them if they were having a rough day, and they said they were at work. And I said, what do you do? And they said, we were watching that mountain over there, and if it moves, we're supposed to call the geological people. That's what I like about Pickens County.
Yeah.
I hope to God it stays that way.
What's
Well,
Pardon?
what's your name?
My name is Dennis Anderson.
we'll appreciate it.
And again, you can get more feedback from
Yeah,
Stacy, and she
we
knows how to
sure
get in touch with me, but I would really like to know
All right.
how it happened.
Don,
Thank you.
Randy wants to say something if he can.
You brought up a good idea. We call base this week on some input that we've got from you and other people, that the list, once this dust settles and the hangar situation is lined up, and she has all the inputs of all the people that had deposits and the way they lined up. I was gonna bring up to the board tonight that once the list is back out, once it's out, we'll put in the glass case at the FBO on the bulletin board, and that list will be locked in the case, and as a name is added or taken off, it will be amended, so that any person walking in from the public can see at any time the ranking of the hangar.
Well, given where you're all volunteers, it doesn't need to be a full-time job. I mean, it doesn't need to be updated every 30 minutes or something
No.
like that, I don't
And
think.
it won't be,
But it definitely has to be more visible.
yes.
And
we're
in
gonna-
particular, I heard of a lot of people that came off of the list because an email was sent out that went to a spam folder. And I have a real serious problem with that because I sent Ed Wood an email on the 28th of October explaining what I just explained to you. And to this minute, haven't heard a word back.
All right.
I'd
let's
like,
move on.
I'd like to amplify that as someone who's been on the list, and Randy knows, I've been on the list for 5 years, then they wanted deposits, I gave a deposit, sat on that list for 2 more years, always the next one up for when C and D block got built. C and D block? That's wrong, it's whatever they're called.
C&D hangars.
C and D, rows, C and D got built, and we finally, I finally made other arrangements, but the reality is, the list went from something that was clearly visible. There was one list, it sat on Randy's desk, he would walk you through it anytime you wanted. You could see your name, you could see your address, you could see your phone number, you could see your email, you could see your tail number, you could see all those numbers, and then it just disappeared. That's the problem. It disappeared. And once it vanished, all the shenanigans with subletting and releasing and moving people around. And let me tell you something else. This subletting thing, that's a crock. You've taken a public asset and you've turned it into a private country club. You don't sublet a hangar that belongs to the city, belongs to the county, belongs to the public. It's a misuse of FAA funds. I haven't seen an environmental impact study, I have not seen an economic impact study, and the way we're playing musical chairs with hangars, I think it's just the tip of the iceberg. And I think it's the responsibility of the board to be more transparent to the community. In the plan that I went through the minutes, I went through the videos, and what you're looking at is, we want a thicker runway, we want a longer runway so we can bring in bigger jets. And if you put this thing to a public referendum in the next county election, I will guarantee you, the people who bought residences at $300,000 and $400,000 just south of the airport are not planning on a jet port. Furthermore, given the prevailing winds, this is not going to be a Gainesville, this is not going to be a Rome. And we might as well face it, we got a north-south runway, we have a beautiful, little, friendly airport. We built hangars, we filled them. We got 100 little airplanes and 100 little happy guys. And to be on the hell-bent to be able to capture city or county or federal or state funds in order to turn this into a jet port is very ill-advised. And I will assure you the community will rally against it, and it will be to the detriment of all the private pilots here. Thank you.
I think that you could
Somebody
solve.
else?
Would you like to?
Well, I'd just like to add one thing, is I think you could solve the whole problem with the list. Instead of putting the list up on the wall in the terminal building, put up Stacy's contact information. I mean, because like I said, she knows what's going on.
Well, she has it. She's got the, she'll be the one.
She has the list.
She has more than one.
One more?
She's got one list all over.
I'm kind of new here. I've only been here since 2018. started a company, put a deposit down with Randy in the company's name for a hangar when it became available. I forget exactly what number it was on the list. But aside from that, I'll redress that in a moment. But I'm just curious, could you guys introduce yourselves and give me an idea of the structure from the FAA down to our local airport and how you guys fit in that? Does that make sense?
What's your name?
John Harvey, my name is John
John Harvey.
Yeah.
Did you get a hangar, John?
No.
Hey, I'm Don Bogus. I'm one of those CEOs he referred to. Been in this community my
remember your
entire
name.
life, all 57 years, and just chair of the authority.
Okay, Don, okay, and
Wendell
I'm-
Turner. Go ahead, Wendell.
Wendell Turner.
Wendell Turner, Don.
David Johnson.
David Johnson.
I just recently sold R&R Body Shop. I was a local businessman, so, yeah.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
Yeah.
And then Randy, I've got. Okay.
Randy's Randy.
Hey, I'm going on 15 years, so I've heard it all.
So, okay, so you guys represent the
county.
airport, county?
The County Airport Authority.
County Airport Authority,
Correct.
okay.
Correct.
So between you gentlemen and the general public and flying public that uses the airport, you're kind of, there's nobody between you and the public?
I am.
Randy.
So you're kind of facing the airport?
I run the FBO every day.
Right.
My phone is never off, my contact number's published on the door.
No, like I said, I'm
You
just
can
trying to
call me anytime, because
I'm
people.
just trying to
do-
understand where everybody fits in the picture, that's all.
Yeah, I'm a
So-
paid employee by the county.
Right, so, and then above you guys is the FAA, or
God.
how does that work?
No, above us is the County Board of Commissioners.
Yeah.
Oh, County Board of Commissioners.
Yeah.
Okay, and then they answer to
They answer to the voters.
Yeah.
the, okay.
We
And then
do-
the
we do our
County Board
budget.
of Commissioners.
We take
So
our
who
budget.
interfaces with the FAA?
I
Is that
do.
you guys or the Board of Commissioners?
I do.
You.
The FAA
Actually,
inspects my
our
field
engineering
with
firm
me.
does more work with the FAA than
And our
anyone else
engineers.
does.
So,
Yeah.
so there's a whole lot of all that to unpack, and I don't know what you want to do. So, as a public use airport, they accept FAA grant money. That obligates them to the FAA grant assurances, the FAA rules,
Mhm.
for the next 20 years. We get a project every year, so essentially it's in like perpetuity. There's very clear FAA rules that we have to follow.
Okay, yeah, I'm just trying to understand the administrative structure of,
This
The
body
local
is the
airport.
airport authority. So typical of airports is you would have the FAA terminology as a sponsor, the owner of the airport. You either have a city as a sponsor, a county as a sponsor,
Mhm.
or an airport authority. A place like a Calhoun, for example, they have a airport authority, city and county, both operate like financial parents to the airport authority. Here, the county does. So this airport authority runs the airport, Randy's the airport manager, above them are the county commissioners.
okay, so when it comes to changes, additions, improvements to the airport, you guys put the recommendations together to then send them to the county commissioners that then do the final, because you guys hold the purse
There's a
strings?
very strict structure with FAA, like November 30th for Georgia. November 30th every year is when the 5-year capital improvement plan goes in,
Mhm.
along with applications for all the projects in the first year.
Mhm.
So if you, you might be able to go find these, but there's videos, we've done a chamber breakfast to talk about the future of the airport, as well as Rotary. And then there's nothing about it, like, there's no such thing as a jet port or anything in FAA terminology. Runway length is not bigger aircraft, it's so the planes can go farther, they can take on more fuel. Right? So in the project that you just submitted in the 5-year capital improvement plan for next year, the project in the first year is to replace the runway lights, the lighting on the airfield, because it's at the end of its useful life, it lasts about 20 years.
Mhm.
So you'll be doing that, that's the next thing. that
So
you'll
it's
do.
in 5-year cycles?
No, it's every year you have to turn in a 5-year capital improvement plan to
Okay.
FAA.
The 5 years rolls just continues.
Yeah.
Oh, and that is available for public comment, right? That's a public
And it's
document.
it's gone through in this meeting, typically what we do is we would discuss it in meetings prior, like in the early fall, because you know you're gonna have the deadline.
Right, I saw it referred to in the last
There's a
video.
significant amount of paperwork that goes in with that, so when you say no environmental impact, you only do environmental impact if you're doing some huge project that requires, most of these small projects, it's a Cat X, it's a categorical exclusion. And they absolutely submit that on all the projects, you have to. So that's all being done, yeah. So you mostly for your projects, like the hangar project is a significant project, you're basically funding it because the revenue generated will pay the debt service and you go. That's not an FA or DOT funded project, it's locally funded. So you're.
So it's not a co-sponsor with
But
the
it
FAA
is
as far
publicly
as-
funded. It was funded by the county as a revenue,
You
as
got
with
a
zero,
loan and you're using the revenue to pay back.
but it's zeroed out with the revenue that comes
Right,
from the
so,
rental.
so.
But this was not taken into account profit that may occur to an individual, who is subletting, is that correct?
I'm answering the FAA.
Individual
Yeah,
sublet.
So that all that.
It's our understanding that the individuals that sublet for the exact cost of the rent, no more, no less.
It's my understanding that the individual who's subletting is still responsible to pay the county the rent.
They are.
And that whatever they collect from another individual is totally between them and the other individual.
But the renter also knows the fee that he's paying and
The
no one,
renter may also know that he
no
doesn't have a
subletter
chance
that,
in hell of getting a hangar unless
Nope.
he pays $400 a month.
no subletter that I know of is subletting a hangar for more than what they pay.
Well, Randy, you wouldn't see those checks.
No, you're
Thank
right.
you.
Let me address just one thing the gentleman back there asked. If we do it right, this airport can support everything from ultralights to jets. We're not trying to favor anybody over
That's right.
anybody else.
That's
If everybody operates in a safe fashion and uses their head, this is an airport that'll benefit everybody from the bottom to the top.
Okay, so that helps me. So forgive me for not being totally up to speed. This is why I'm asking these questions. So ultimately, Wendell flies, right? Randy, do you fly or do you still fly?
No, sir, I was a maintainer. I know how they're built.
Okay. Do you guys fly Don or?
I'm not current. I'm an old airplane restorer is what I do.
Oh, okay.
I don't have a medical any longer.
Well,
Okay.
aren't we supposed to have 3 current pilots on the board? Isn't that per the charter?
The charter was updated to 5
3
members.
licensed pilots.
3 licensed pilots out of the 5 members. Do we have that now?
I'm still licensed.
You're still licensed,
I'm
but
still
not
licensed. Wendell's an instructor.
Well, he's licensed.
Ed's licensed, so we got 4.
Yeah.
All right, Dave?
David Thorburn, Dunlop, Getting Smart Flight. I just want to say thank you very much for the idea that the list and other things like that can become visible. I don't necessarily think it should be posted on the website or somewhere, but it'd be great to be able to get after a couple of years of not being able to see it. And, you know, life is what it is. I'd like to encourage the authority to see how transparent they can be. I'd love to see an agenda. It's y'all's business because you have to run this and really appreciate all the work you do. But if there's any way more information can be available to the public, I'd like to be a better informed public member. And I really appreciate all the work you guys do. If there's anything you can do to help expose that, that would be really great. But thank you for working to put the list up. I know that that's been a bone of contention. I think it's a good step. Thanks a lot.
I think every meeting we've ever had is still archived and online.
Yes.
All right, moving on, treasurer's report. I've passed out what I just got emailed to me shortly before the meeting, but it is the November financials. David and Wendell, I'll give y'all a chance to,
You got an extra one?
oh, I don't know.
If you don't, I'll make
I do. And give you a chance to look at them. If you got any questions, I'm sure Stacy will have the answer for them. I don't know, Stacy, I think you were on the email too.
I got it the same time you
Yeah,
did.
so that's why I said that.
Our revenue's already over 100%, and expenditures are matching that, and we have more on the way. Our year closes December 31st. Okay. Our fuel sales is what's driving the revenue and expenditures both, so the train will merge with the new influx of rent for December. And so we'll finish out the year in the black.
All right. Airport managers report.
September, we had a good September. October and November, it's starting to slow down for December because of weather and the availability for the military. They got a lot of stuff back from overseas, and we were going to have a Black Hawk tonight, but it broke on the runway getting ready to fly up here, so it canceled. September, we had 20 jet burners and 3 military in the airfield. Air Methods is paying, as you know, for the air rescue operation. Their fuel purchases offset the rent that we have to lease the fuel truck for. So everything the truck is available on the ramp is coming back to us, profit plus expense of the fuel. So on the ramp is our bread and butter, and then Air Methods basically pays for the lease of the truck. The truck's rather expensive, but they maintain it, they change the filters, they change the hoses. We're in a contract right now to refurbish both the Jet A and the 100 low lead fuel tanks through Southern Coatings. It was bid process, it was a survey. We got money from the state or feds to do that. So it's paid for without us having to pay a dime. So we're just trying to improve our facilities. And basically right now we shouldn't have to order any fuel by the end of the month unless there's a spike in traffic. But with the great weather we've had the last couple of days, we've got some things on the horizon that's going to get us off to a real good footing that we will announce at the next meeting. A lot of things is coming around for the airport, so we're very encouraged by that. We're looking already, talking about openness. You know, as a manager here every day, when somebody says, hey, this is out, he said one of our PAPI lights on 3/4 is out. We call it in to be repaired. AWAS went down last week, stayed down 4 days, had to put out an O-town, had to get them up to fix it. They can't touch that for less than $1,000. I don't give a rat's but what it is. It seems if they're driving from out of town and they said it, they fixed it. Our radio transmitter's out. Now I got to submit a PO to get the radio transmitter fixed because they're giving us a loaner. We're already in negotiations due to our 5-year CIP to replace the AWAS system and relocate it for an anticipated new FBO. So it's expired, it's past its useful life. Our runway lights are old, they're starting to fall apart, they need a lot of work. Our taxi lights are the same way. We got runways cracking, so we got budgets from now to for eternity to remedy these situations, and we're working toward that. If anybody has input, walk to the FBO, come see me, we'll get it down, we'll get in a meeting, we'll go from there.
How about the catwalk ring?
The catwalk, once we get the tanks, yeah, we got 13 total, it's gonna cost 9 for the paint job and refurb. We got an estimate from Cagletown Welding, it's a little high, they wanted 6, so we're going out for other bids on private welders to give us a bid on the catwalk. And we're not gonna put it in place until the tanks are painted and rehabbed, so the catwalk will probably go in March, April.
Wasn't it 13 grand? What's the?
13 total. We're putting 9 on
So
the.
13 is going toward the rehab of the tanks and the catwalk?
Correct.
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
You be careful in the winter, Randy.
yeah.
That's my concern is,
Thank you,
you
buddy.
know, we brought that up before, and I know Randy brought that up and we approved that. I was just curious
Yeah.
as to where it was.
We're moving in the process, trying to get it done, and
Okay.
hopefully we'll have it up soon.
Any
That's
other-
all I got.
Any other questions for Randy? Phil?
Okay, and we've got our report, and then there's Commissioner's remark. If he's not here, if it's okay, I'll roll right into the T hangar and the terminal, okay? Okay, so we basically had, since last meeting, November 30th, 5-year CIP, signed all the applications. That was submitted, we load all that stuff up electronically into the system for GDOT and FAA. That was all done. That's in. We have, and it's related to the terminal project, but as we get to start to talk about that, recall that we have literally 5 projects that were going to be funded by GDOT and FAA last spring. They put the terminal funding in there, and then we had to extend those bid prices. So we have a wind cone replacement, we have a beacon rehab where they repaint it and it physically moves to make way for the new terminal. We have the AWAS, which is 20-year-old, it's at the end of its useful life, we're gonna have those issues, that's in there, funded. We have a crack seal and remarking of the runway with the current FA marking spec that has a mold inhibitor in it. And I think that's, the apron expansion, which expands the apron about 70 feet back between the AWAS and the existing terminal, expands the ramp back a bit, so we have a deeper ramp with the new terminal building. Those projects are all sitting ready to go. The terminal was added in, and then those are delayed. Well, they asked us to get the terminal bids in November so that they would then go write the grant that has now 6 projects in it. So you have voted previously to sign all paperwork based on funding for those other 5 projects. When I talked about the terminal update, I'm going to connect back to that because there's 6 in there, and what we need to do to the terminal to link it into those others, so when the grant comes, we'll be able to sign it. The T-hanger box update. So we got the CO in November. As you move new aircraft in, our based aircraft count goes up. Some aircraft that are coming from other airports in the FA-based aircraft system, they have to be released from the other airport. So that's just a process that goes on. We would expect they go till the end of January where they keep going. But at this point, and again in that system, if a plane is shown at 2 airports, it doesn't count for either one. So whenever an airport builds something and has some new aircraft come in, there will be a period of transition where they don't count yet. So we specifically did the 27 hangars to push up to 100 to hit the threshold that gives us, it now becomes a considered airport of regional impact, and there's some funding leverage with that for things when we go in to replace lights and things like that in the AWAS. So right now, we're ready at 94 aircraft with about 10 that are shown at 2 airports that will be, that'll drop off, so we'll go forward. So you're well on your way to being above that threshold. And again, operationally, the threshold for what you do and what you can do and culture-wise, that doesn't change because you went to 100, but it does help with things like when we ask for the lighting replacement or something that's advantageous for us to be in that number. It does put you in Georgia of all the airports, and they vary at any given time about the number of based aircraft, but at 100, you enter the top 10. You're about 10th right now. So at 94, with 10 shown 2 airports, by the time we meet next time, we'll be over 100. So I'll say too that I think Pickens County, there's 103 public use airports, 159 counties, so about 2/3 of the counties have public use airports. Pickens County, I think, is maybe like 54th in population. So if you think, as far as punching above your weight to be in the top 10, which speaks to the interest, culture, all that stuff that you want to maintain and keep, you are wildly outperforming the other communities that are in the top 10. Well, you got Gwinnett County, you've got PDK, you've got 3/4 to 1 million people, even Cherokee's 250 or something. So that's incredible, and it speaks volumes to kind of what you worked hard to get here and continue to need to support so that you keep the airport as you want. Mr. Commissioner, I skipped ahead a little bit. Would you like to do your remarks?
No, sorry, I apologize for running back and forth between 2 meetings, one downstairs and one upstairs, but I think you guys have done a great job putting together the plan, and very impressed with what's going on over there.
I think what he just said tells us our volunteer board is doing a pretty damn good job.
Yeah.
They doubled their pay.
Definitely staying active.
Beat your pay, yeah.
Yeah. So we're just talking about, as we transition the new hangars in, then as the planes move in that weren't on the airport already, you'll end up at that 100 mark. Already we're at 94. There's about 10 planes that are still shown at other airports. As those get released, you'll be over 100. So you'll get there in January, I would say. And that's, again, especially if you look at population, that's a real good way to compare what you have. It tells a lot about a lot of positive things. But then you fight to keep those positive things so you don't lose it.
How long does that process take from one to another?
Process of
Moving an airplane from Gainesville to Pickens County?
so you instantly can move the airplane.
Oh, I understand that, but before the rest shows up on the government.
So as an example, so here, as it shows up, and this is not an FA tracking for anything other than the based aircraft, so they use that. What used to be the airports just verbally told FA how many
But that
planes
would
were. So I'll say this, if you went back to, looked up, FA was sold by Winder, they had like 162 planes in probably early 90s. Whatever, so if you look back historically based aircraft, they look like a heart patient, right? And so you want a slow, methodical, growth that's healthy and it's sustainable, so you're not trying to hit a home run and then putting yourself in a bad spot. So you grow slow and methodical. What happens in the based aircraft, so a plane moves, then you would take, if it's in Georgia, you just call the airport and ask them to take it off theirs. And usually, depending on how the airports run, they may go in there once a month and do an update. So we can contact them and just say, hey, can you bump that one off? It's signed a lease here. And then Stacy's sharing those tail numbers, so we can do that. If the plane's out of state and it's at an airport, occasionally something will be in an airport that has they're literally, you can call them and they don't know anything about this. It was last updated by somebody 5 years ago. That person's not there. They don't even know anything about it, and we'll try to walk them through. Go onto this website. Do you have a password? So it's just a matter of doing that and making sure your stuff's captured right. If ultimately it's not shared, we can talk to the person that manages that system, show them data that we have leases and things to prove that it's here. They'll make a note and then ultimately they'll flip it. So it's all work that goes on with all of this stuff. So related to the terminal, now we have those 5 projects that we had. They gave funding to the terminal, but linked it to those. So those bids have all been extended. So at this point, we've had the bid opening on the terminal that they asked us to have in November, and that is a hyper-accelerated time frame to be able to do that, but it's tied in all those other projects. 3 of those projects are projects that have to move stuff out of the way so we can put the building in there. So that's fine. We just take the money and we're happy to figure it out. Anyway, the project was bid. You see that bid tab there. About 5 folks take out plans. Candido and Mako were the 2 folks that actually turned in the bid. Candido 2.231786 and Miko 2.306 even. So really close. Candido's just entered. Since this bid was open November 23rd, then we go back working with the architect to go back through their bid, what they sent in, to make sure everything complies with what it's supposed to. So at this point, you have in front of you that certified bid tab that we've looked through, certified the dollar amounts, and then the action item on this, similar to those other projects, you have to vote to sign everything related to it, but it's dependent on the funding being available. So the specific thing we need action on is we need to approve signing all paperwork associated with the terminal building in site based on funding. And that would be the same wording that you used for those other 5 projects, but you've already taken care of those.
It's been in funding, so moved.
Second. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you.
And then what we're doing is we're in contact with the DOT person saying when is the contract going to be available so we can schedule and all that. And if for some reason it takes them a real long time, it delays, we have to extend those prices again. Eventually somebody's not going to extend and we'll have to rebid something in there and then that'll slow the whole process down. But it's money that will help us with other projects, so we will jump through whatever hoops like we do with everything else to make it happen. So that's a positive thing, and again, there's a lot of projects in there that will help everybody with everything. Especially the AWAS is a little bit overlooked. You don't have 6 things going on at once. That's not even counting the box hangers or the T hangers, but that's super positive, and that's a lot of good things for the airport. So, and that's all we have. That's all we have is just the. And I will say, again, the interesting thing. So you had that December of 18 ribbon cutting on those 2 Ts. That was 19 Ts. This number specifically tried to get to 27 to push north of 100. So you've added 46. Counting the boxes as 1 space, you've added 46 hangar units in 3 years, basically. That's
Yeah.
not a,
That's amazing growth.
that's amazing.
And they've been
That's
100%
amazing.
occupied since day one.
Yeah, and we took some aerial photos around, at the very end of November, and there's pictures you have there. We will then share those. I will get you copies, Randy, the file, and we will get to Mary and Green copies of those photos as well for the website.
One quick question. I heard the 5 items in the CIP and probably did not hear the south area ramp repair because it's already been funded maybe. Is that still scheduled for?
It's
No.
not funded.
Oh,
So,
okay.
so that's back in
Okay.
this application. So you just, if there's something we kind of have to have, you just keep putting it in the pot.
Gotcha.
And when they're submitted, there's a narrative, there's a sketch, there's the application, there's an engineer's estimate that goes with it. So we got, from last year, we got 5. They hooked this terminal into, it's like great. So what we said, submit on that in September, in the end of November, is for consideration for next July 1st. So we will, in May or June, they will send out what's called TA letters, tentative allocation letters, and that's when we hear if that gets funded or not.
So we're hoping it will be next summer or fall?
We don't hope, we send in the applications, and that's how we get it funded. So you did that the year before for that, and you did it again this year.
Okay, all right, thank you.
But last year, when you sent stuff in, you were sending in, your AWAS was dying, so you were
Right.
sending AWAS. The terminal was about to fall down, so we put a shot, they weren't even, that was not something they normally fund, but they came through with that.
Yeah.
The wind cone doesn't meet FA criteria. The ramp expansion is something that you want to do to just have a deeper ramp, that includes a
Sure.
ramp rehab out front.
After all this
Crack
work, it's
seal and
just
marking.
growing stuff.
Crack seal and marking is the FA marking spec
Mhm.
that was in place the last time the runway was marked, was meant to be a little more environmental friendly. It became mold attracting. So now, going back with new marking, that mold inhibitor, we really want to do that because you'll see everything nice and clearly. So those are all things you've asked for. You got literally everything you asked for. That's not normal to get that many projects.
Right,
So they're really supporting the airport, but they didn't fund that ramp.
okay.
That's so obvious that
Yeah.
it needs to be done. That's not great they didn't fund it, but if you had to pick one they didn't fund, that's the one that's so obvious and has mathematical scoring on the pavement and stuff like that. So that's a little, that'll score well, I think, in our stuff moving forward.
Thank you. Good to know.
That's all we,
I love the renderings.
yeah, so you've got copies of the day and night version of that.
I have a photo hanging on my wall from an aerial of the Pickens County Airport, probably in the early 80s. There's no taxiways. There's only the 10 box hangers in a straight line. And I have to say, this board, the people previously on the board, and the people in the community are finally understanding that every dollar you spend in an airfield brings $30 to $50 back in economic development to the county. We have hosted U-Haul presidents that did purchase the bargain barn building. We've landed bank presidents, real estate agents, developers, you name it, they're here. They're coming in because of the culture of the county. It has been a long road from 2 hangars that all the pilots wrote. Each one of those pilots that built A and B wrote a check for that hangar for a 7-year lease.
For the construction of it.
For the construction. They didn't pay all of it. They paid 80% of it. So we've come a long way, baby. I mean, we spent a lot of money in a lot of places to get developed in a lot of different ways, but we have never turned our back on the prop jobs because propellers got us to where we are now. Not one jet is a number that's in those 94. I got 2 more landed tomorrow. Another flight school will be on the field by the end of this month. Tony Wong, he's bringing in 4 new model 172s. Is a R a new model? I don't know what the R is. So they're bringing them in. So they'll be on the field. 2 will be on the field tomorrow. That's 2 more coming in. He's bringing up 2 more.
Parking outside?
Yep, he's gonna have 9, 10, 11, and 12 tie downs. So we're gonna have 4 more. It makes a big difference when you get those numbers as how much, it's kinda like respect. Here's the little county in the state of Georgia with 32,000 people at best, hitting the top 10 airfield in the state of Georgia. And we don't have Jet 1 signed here, not one. We turn a lot of them, we get a lot of them in, a lot of executives coming in, they're starting to notice us, because our airfield in time of crisis is usually one they can get to. And I personally think the citizens, the Rotary, the board, and all the people past and present that's been involved in this. Yes, we have growing pains, yes, we make mistakes. But you know, it takes involvement. Do you know how many years I've sat in these meetings and not one person has been in here? Not
Randy, do you know how
one.
hard it is to find this
Not
meeting?
one.
We asked upstairs, we wandered around for 30 minutes.
It takes
They say,
people
hey, do you know
getting involved.
where the airport authority meeting is? And they say, geez, is that time? And
It's-
we finally found y'all.
It's published and we're pretty regular about it.
Meeting, though.
So, you know, it's published, we're pretty regular about it. We appreciate the involvement, we appreciate the
We know
input.
you do.
Swing by the FBO, take your best shot. I'm a big boy, I can handle it.
The building's not that big either.
Nope.
It's gonna be one of 3 rooms. All right, anything else?
Yeah, I had two questions. I think
Nope.
I might have articulated
You didn't see it on your
and the first one, the one got lost because I had to learn about the organization structure. The other is it the board's policy that it's a first come, first served basis on occupations of hangars as they come available based on the deposits made the date that the check was deposited, or how does that work? Because when I left my check with you, Randy, I assumed that you were the custodian of the list.
Yeah.
Do you know where that list is now at this moment?
In the county administration office for the
Okay.
Pickens County FBO and everything.
Was that the sole and only list?
Now, at one time, we had a different list in 2015, 10, 11, 9, we had a different list, had like 20 people on it. As a hangar would come available, 1 or 2 years later, a hangar would come up. And we would call the person, and I've called one time I called 13 names until one person said, yes, I'll take that hangar.
Sure.
Put me on the bottom of the list again.
So
It
it
got
is-
being
So
an
it is my
administrative
understanding
nightmare.
that it's a first come, first served basis based on the check deposit as a security towards the rental of the hangar when it comes available. Is that true or not true?
The process was that you come in the office, when we instituted the deposit, was 2019. And we had a form, you fill out the form, you hand me a check. You could, I say give you the opportunity to take a picture of the form and the check. I write the date the check was received, the month, day, year, the check number, and then turn it into county. That name went on that list.
And that's
Now-
the date for the priority of the hangar.
That was the date for the priority of the hangars last year, up to last year.
And that policy continues, I assume.
That policy, after the assignment of the hangars that were available for occupancy immediately, it was given to the airport authority. One member said, this is the way, you've got a lot going on, this is what we're gonna do, and that's what they did.
And is what we're gonna do still
What does that mean?
the date? You had me until you said up until.
Yeah, that's what changed.
What we're doing right now is trying to figure out what got sideways and fix it. That's what we're trying to do right
Now,
now.
if fixing it
There's an
means-
issue,
Let me ask you, if fixing it means bumping someone out of a hangar that they really shouldn't have got in the first place, are you guys willing to take that kind of a tough
I'm saying
tough stance?
that's a possibility, once we look at all the facts.
Okay, because it seems to me that what Dennis is saying is very clear. You got a check, you cash the check. That's the list.
We got the date the check was deposited in escrow from day one, cause I don't keep money, it goes straight to
All right,
the
What about
account.
you?
Did you have a second question? We've got to move on.
Yeah.
No, that sort of clears it up, except for when it went sideways and there was.
All right. New business, we did, our 5-year master agreement with Lead Edge is maturing. We have ran the required legal ads to request statements for qualifications for both the consultant and the engineer. We had, I think, 5 different requests for those qualifications, for the detail qualifications that we wanted. They were due December 1st. We actually only had one returned, and that was Lead Edge. So, Phil, do we need to
So you just,
Is-
vote to
We-
approve you signing the master agreement.
Master agreement, because we're not gonna meet before,
Yeah,
again, before.
and just, and for everybody to remember, this is the FA criteria. You have a master agreement, it references no project. Then when there's an individual project done, you have a task order that's only about 2 pages, has 3 things on it. What it is, how much it is, and how long it'll take. So then you do all the boilerplate stuff that FA makes you put in the master agreement. You don't have to put that in every contract, it just references for that. So
And Phil will tell us this too, while it's a 5-year agreement, it is not a binding 5-year agreement.
Yeah, correct. So in the FA criteria, you must go through this process no longer than 5 years. The reason primarily, one of the main points of that is, the boilerplate stuff that's in there about disadvantaged business enterprise and EEO and all this federal criteria, that's updated periodically. So if you're no more than 5 years old on the master agreement, they say you pretty much have the more recent stuff. If you didn't do it for a long period, you could actually have something that's contrary to the rules. So, like Don said, you're not happy with us, you can fire us. But you do have to go through this process a minimum of 5 years. So obviously, we do a good job, you would probably go the whole 5 years. But that's the reason why, it's a little bit like an annual on a plan. You have to refresh that agreement and put in there what they say to put in there. So that's what it is. So this would be to authorize you to sign the master agreement.
Is there a motion to that effect?
There is a motion to that effect.
Motion as a second.
All right, any further discussion? All in favor, say aye. Any opposed? All right, at this
Welcome
time.
back.
Thank you. Mr. Cotter.
At this time, we're gonna go into executive session, and the only other item of business, for tonight is coming out of that executive session. So we'll entertain a motion to enter into executive session.
So I'm gonna
Excuse me? Oh. Oh, that's all right. A motion to go into executive session to consult and meet with legal counsel pertaining to pending or potential litigation, settlement claims, administrative proceedings, or other judicial actions brought or to be brought by or against the county or an officer and employee in which the officer or employee may be directly involved.
So moved. Second.
All right. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right.